you so much for joining us today. This is rhepodcast. This is Isaiah Diesel, and thank you for joining us today, Darrington, again.
Hey, thanks for having me. Always enjoy this little conversation of ours.
Yeah, actually, we were just talking briefly right now about the importance of having something like this. I mean, you're up early on a Saturday morning, and it is 1 o'clock here in South Korea. So I really appreciate your time, Darrington. You are a very worthy adversary. I'll say that much.
Oh, well, thank you. Thank you. I don't know if that's necessarily the case, but it's always a pleasure, going back and forth. And
That's a bit of a joke because I certainly don't see you as an adversary. In fact, in the grand scheme of everything, I actually see you more as an ally than anything, because actually you and I share a lot of common values. So here's a quick recap of my story. That I went to Bible college my freshman year to kind of appease my mom, why I'm dropping out, becoming an atheist, and then actually I didn't know what I would say. The last month I was there, I didn't really know what to call myself. But then I went to community college and started taking philosophy, and I think our professor was an atheist, and so he kind of helped me step into that realm using like logic and science and reasoning. And so later on, I did wind up going back to Bible college, not even as a believer, just like trying to find God. I had digested like 150 sleeping pills, and I had to spend like 3 days in the hospital. And I felt like I was searching for God. So by the time I went back into there, I already had an associate's degree, and I already understood argument and logic and all those kind of things. So when I went back to Bible college the second time, I was just evaluating what the people were saying, and a lot of times just simply did not add up, So my background is in philosophy, and I do try to take those principles and apply it to religion. And so when I meet people like you who are capable of logical, rational thinking, you're kind of like a jewel out there, I'd say, because a lot of people don't operate that. They operate in a realm of emotion and fallacy, if you know what I mean.
Yeah. I was thinking recently about that phenomenon where, like, what is it that makes, like, me being an atheist, like, because there's a certain quality, I think, of not just atheists, but a certain type of person who just takes the whole philosophy and logic question and sort of cosmic questions to a completely different level than most people do. Most people go about their lives. They're like, I go to church on Sunday, or I don't go to church on Sunday. Mm-hmm. They just live their lives. Mm-hmm. And, I think for us, this is a very, very important question, because we're very good at following the trail of crumbs that gets left by our everyday conversations.
Coming to different conclusions is possible, but I think as long as we're using rationality and sound reasoning, then we can have meaningful discussions. If I'm going to come out and just name call or try to throw mud at you, or try to present my side as being totally flawless, I think we're going to have some trouble. We're going to have some trouble, some very fundamental steps, like along the way, we're going to get tripped up, is what I mean, because that's been the one thing that I have been very cognizant to try not to present. One, first of all, I'm a very flawed person. One. Two is that I don't understand everything. You know what I mean? There's a lot of gaps inside of theology that, simply I just don't understand. And even talking to atheists, talking to Muslims, talking to deists, the agnostics, I mean, I've learned a lot in the last few months. So I'm really grateful for your contribution. I posted from a book called How to Win Friends and Influence People, like the proper ways how to argue without getting, emotion into it. And one of the things was avoid your first instinct. because it's very frequently wrong.
Mhm.
And I can't even tell you how many times my intuition has been wrong with people and situations where I thought was right, and it turns out not to be right. The way you described this, and I don't know, I would like some more clarity, because when I heard you say that atheists just need to wait it out, um, what registered into my mind was that essentially theists are going to grow up, and then after they grow up, after they mature, they're not going to have religion anymore, and then kind of like the the atheists will just come in and save the day or whatever. But the way that you said it the other day, I think you might have been, in the last time we recorded, I think you might have meant something totally different. So I would just like you to elaborate on that, please.
Yeah, so we've been seeing a lot of situations where, particularly in the United States, which is where I have most of my, all of my experience. But so as I see, we've been seeing a lot of people leave the faith, because of the church tying itself to a particular political ideology, or the church tying itself to a particular set of dogmas that have not aged well over time. So, there are doctrines within the church that seem very primitive and archaic to a modern person. And, a lot of the youths are recognizing this. We're an educated population now. We can read the Bible ourselves. We can, find the fallacies in what the flawed church is passing down to us. And that's sort of what I meant, is that not that we're going to save the day. We're not heroes. We're not superior. The atheist is not superior in any way. We're all humans. We're all pretty much on the same level.
I'm superhuman, but okay.
But the church itself will tear itself apart by embracing, false ideologies, such as, I don't know, certain right-wing factions.
Nationalism.
Yeah. And the next generation sees that, right? So when you preach about, if there's a Baptist preacher preaching from the pulpit about Jesus and then supporting someone like Donald Trump, that there's a hypocrisy there that the next generation is seeing, and they just leave the church, right?
Yeah.
So that's kind of what I meant, is that we don't have to do anything. The church does it to itself.
And I'm really, really glad that we clarified that point, because when I heard it, I did laugh it off, but that was my interpretation at the time. Maybe I should have asked for clarification, but already I was thinking, okay, I prefer a little bit of cheeky humor. I prefer a little bit of maybe some subtle jabs, like that's fine. I'm not, I don't want you to come in and agree with everything I think, you know what I mean? That's kind of like would really defeat the purpose of what I'm trying to do with this, is that I'm trying to have open dialogue and discussion, and, challenge each other. I really want you to challenge me. You have challenged me. And I want to challenge you, I think that's a healthy thing to do, and to do so with respect. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
That being said, I actually find it very, very, well, first of all, I want to say, I'm really glad that we get to talk today one-on-one, because I'm glad we get to clear some air. One, not that I don't enjoy having other hosts and such, but then we're trying to also talking to them, and I'm just really enjoying this time that we can clarify some stuff.
Yeah, for sure.
Because I definitely respect you. I definitely think you have a good tenacity in the way that you're thinking and analyzing things, and I think that is a very, very good analysis of the church and people who are supposedly representing the faith. So I have the same kind of concerns as you do. I live overseas, so it's hard for me to even think in terms of the Christian nationalism and American nationalism. The terms that I think of are totally different. I live in another country. We have socialized medicine. We don't have guns here. The fact that you could really, as an atheist, as a non-believer, point out a lot of these things that even Christians don't see. Just inside of the realm of, that's kind of like a plot hole, I would call it. Like if you're noticing things about scripture, you can see that this isn't adding up. This isn't adding up from what you're claiming to believe and what you guys are practicing. That's quite embarrassing, honestly, that that you would pick up on that, as opposed to people who actually believe it. That's, I think,
well, it's not me picking up on it, right? Like you can go to TikTok or Twitter or any sort of social media and just look up ex-Mormon or evangelion,
evangelical.
Thank you. Ex-Baptist. Just look up the hashtags, and you see story after story after story of young people leaving the church, basically because the recent situation has enlightened them to the problems in the doctrine. And some of them are not becoming atheists. Some of them are moving to other churches, right, that have more faithful tradition, something more faithful to the teachings of Jesus in the case of Christians, right? So there are plenty of liberal churches in the United States. My personal perspective on it as an outsider is that the Jesus character is it's kind of a hippie, right? He's a liberal person. He preaches love. And so if you have a church down the road, one of them's, preaching hate, fire and brimstone, and the other one's preaching love and trying to help people, people are going to be drawn to that more liberal church. But during that transition, it's a very vulnerable time for someone of faith, right? It's a crisis of faith. And it's so easy in this day and age to just let go of that baggage, right? And just say, I'm done with all of it. I can have love in my heart and not need the church at all. And I think that's what we're seeing. And I don't think you really need to take my word for it. Just go look around.
Well, I'll tell you this. Whenever I was in Europe after I got divorced, I spent a couple of months there recovering. And I got to tell you that I saw a lot of churches abandoned. And I think in the Netherlands, they were just like, some of them were museums, some of them were community centers. And I couldn't be any happier to see that as an unbeliever. Specifically in Europe, one of the reasons why, and there's many reasons we could go into, but one of the reasons why is they've seen how much the government has actually abused religion as a means to control people. There's a lot of wars, Catholics fighting Protestants, King George, Anglican Church being created. I mean, and this is why, as a believer, I can pretty much guarantee. I mean, I put money. I'm more secular in my beliefs than you are, if you can believe that. I actually would prefer Christians being persecuted, because that's what actually bring about stronger belief in Christ. And so when you have the government stepping in and forcing people, you might think that that's helping religion, but it doesn't at all. It turns people off. And so, like, here's an example. Okay, go to Germany. All right, they actually automatically take tithes out of your paycheck. You don't have a choice. Doesn't matter if you're an atheist or not. And the only thing you get to do is choose what church it goes to. So, and there's a lot of unbelievers there. So when you have that, it's just going to really turn people off to religion. I don't want people being turned off to religion. I don't want people being turned off to Jesus Christ. The gospel message is something I've devoted my life to as a missionary. And I just, quite frankly, don't want the government even remotely close to it. That being said, I do want to transition to our topic, which what we're talking about. But okay, first of all, let me ask you a question. At some point of your life, were you a Mormon, or did you just in there?
Yeah, I would say at some point in my life I believed, and I was too young to have been able to make any decision otherwise. So I was a Mormon. I was raised in the church.
But you had also mentioned you had gone to another kind of church, correct?
Well, my father's family is from Pentecostal background,
Okay,
so
that's actually
we
sorry.
he actually converted to Mormonism for my mom, and
Really?
did go to the Mormon church. Yeah. That's pretty, I mean, it's pretty typical that one spouse will convert, even if they don't believe, just to
Hmm,
make the other spouse happy.
interesting.
Uh,
And just real quick before we get into that, at what age did you step away from the Mormon faith, and um, what was your family's response to that?
um, it was kind of a slow transition, but I would say that there was a moment where I came out, and I said, I don't believe, I'm not going to church anymore. And that was probably um, 14 or 15, maybe a little bit later.
Mhm.
Um, and my immediate family, who isn't very devout, it wasn't a surprise to them at all,
Mm.
because I'm cantankerous, and they're like, oh yeah, of course Darrington's the atheist, right? And but the extended family, which we were very, very close with, um, they they have this, first of all, they were very loving and polite and
Mhm.
caring, and they send the missionaries to your house, to try and save you
Woo you
from
back.
your faith crisis. Yeah. And but everybody's nice and welcoming. They kind of love bomb you for a while, and then you just kind of always notice in every interaction that you're the outsider. And I don't even know if it's conscious. I think it's because it's super subtle. And then you start realizing all of the little things that like kind of drive you nuts about how the church takes control of people's lives and the
Mhm,
lives of those around you.
mhm,
Um, so I think by the time I was 18, I was just like completely done with the Mormon faith.
mhm,
I was
mhm.
looking for other options. So I studied um, the rest of Christianity, Islam, um, Buddhism, um, you know, just kind of
Sound like
looking
me.
for, yeah, like this is the ultimate question, right? And if it's true, it's the most important thing to know.
Mhm. And so,
So,
at what age would you say that you concluded that there wasn't a God, and what was the reasoning behind that?
um, I was probably late 30s. Only within the
Wow.
last few years have I gone all the way to that end of the scale where I'm just like, that I'm an anti-theist. I
Okay.
can't even get away with atheist.
Yeah, if you're an anti-theist, then that in my mind, in my opinion, it means you actually believe in God and you're just against him. And I actually could understand that to a degree. So,
Well, well, I think
good.
so that there's a lot of different definitions for the word. In the way I phrase it, and at least the way that when I heard it coined, it was by Christopher Hitchens.
Right.
And Christopher Hitchens' definition of it is against theism, against the religion, right? So I can be against Voldemort. He's a villain. I don't like him. He's a bad guy. I'm anti-Voldemort, right? I can be anti-God. I can think he's a villain and be against him. And if he were real, I would rise up, and rebel against him, because that character, if you read especially the Old Testament, man, that's some evil stuff. But either way, I think what Hitchens was trying to get at with the anti-theism is saying that religion itself, not necessarily God, religious, the belief that faith is a quality that you would want to have,
Yeah.
is detrimental to society.
So, so,
And so
so,
I'm kind of anti-religious faith.
so the problem whenever you say something like that is you equivocate whenever you're speaking about the word faith, because faith does not exactly have. There's lots of different ways to use faith, right? So
Sure.
when you said the first conversation that we should make our our value decisions based not off of faith, right? That's what you said. It's not like we're just like, okay, let's cover our eyes and let's just go and point to things. So
Right.
it's really not. So for me, I believe, not 100%, but I do believe that there is a logical, rational, scientific basis for Christianity. Now, if you're going to say, how do I have faith? Because some of it doesn't make sense. I'll be flat out. I mean, if we were going to hold this standard, then you're going to say, do you really believe, do you really believe a billion galaxies with billions of stars in it pops into existence out of nothing and life arises, and look yourself in the mirror? Like, I couldn't do that as a non-believer. So I considered myself a deist for many years. But the reality is that I would have called myself, at the end of the day, an anti-theist, because I positively, beyond any reasonable doubt, knew that God existed. I mean, he, beyond any certainty, proved himself to me multiple times. And I still said, F you, and I'm still going to commit every last blasphemy. I mean, I could show you head to toe. I have all the world religions tattooed on me, and I wanted to do drugs, and I wanted to be promiscuous, and I was rebelling against him and against God, against him, against my parents. So yeah, the problem is that whenever we say faith, it can be used in multiple different ways. So if you're just saying like faith is illogical, I don't find that in the slightest sense the word that faith is illogical. It has some illogical elements to it, certainly, but to think that there's a creator, that there's purpose, that we have an ability to reach that creator. And this is why I think on an ontological basis, belief or Christianity, any kind of belief, has a more consistent ontological system than atheism. Because obviously, you and I could positively establish this. There's no way you and I would ever know one way or another if God doesn't exist. Because we exist for, in the time frame of the universe, 1 second is 160,000 years. If the universe was 1 day, right? So we exist, boom, one tiny speck. So you would never make that. You would never be able to make that conclusion. Would you agree with that?
I don't know what I'm agreeing to here. Like, so if time was scaled differently, time would be different. Yeah, but what?
No, that you couldn't. Okay, so let's be frank with this. If you're going to say that God doesn't exist, and you think that that's a provable position, you would have to search 14, or I guess it's 80 billion years across, 80 billion light years across. You would have to do that for 15 billion years.
Right.
Or however long, I don't know however long they say the universe is. So what I'm saying is, I gave the analogy, you come in with a straw and you look at a movie for a corner for a second and you walk away and you're like, that movie sucks. So, okay, so one, there's that. Second, I do think that Christianity has a basis to at least potentially be proven. Okay, so we say that you can have X, Y, and Z experiences with God if you do X, Y, and Z. And you had mentioned prayer, or I had mentioned prayer, and you said, well, you have your own. Maybe we discuss that topic alone in the evil God hypothesis one. But I've seen prayer work, man. I've absolutely seen. But the Bible gives certain parameters that you're supposed to pray. And so I said, hey, if you're going to say scientifically we've studied this and it doesn't work, and then why doesn't God answer? Why doesn't God stop a hurricane or something like that? And you're trying to pick a hole in it. You're not even going by the source material that the Bible is actually talking about. So I think at bare minimum, you need to examine the source material and not try to cherry pick it and try to find. That's called straw manning arguments. So I do believe that it can experimentally be proven. So getting to the meat of this conversation, from the very first episode that I did with my first host, we took turns trying to poke holes in each other's arguments. Okay, then we turn the guns in on ourselves and try to find holes in our own arguments, And I had a heyday with that because there's a lot of stuff I don't understand, okay? And just totally doesn't 100% make sense to me. And this is why in the problem of evil one, I said I would have a much harder time, like much harder time trying to defend some of the other stuff than specifically that one, because that one is much more, I can rationalize that one a lot easier than I can some of the other stuff. But that being said, in the spirit of empathy to try to see from the other person's perspective, what I want to do today is focus on what do we find the most appealing of the opposite position that you hold. So I want to go first. I've met people from I've traveled the world, so I've met people from all over walks of life and all along the spectrum, So I'm very careful not to paint people with one brush, right? But a lot of the atheists I know, if you believe that this is your only life that you have, it would put more of a carpe diem-esque urgency on your life. And we just talked to a guy who you and I interviewed, Robert, who lost a son. And I said, in that sense, I think you have a very bigger advantage of me, at least in this present lifetime, because you're going to cherish that kiss and that hug, that embrace more than I am if I think I have eternity to spend with this person, In that sense, I really envy that. I don't believe at all it's true, but if I look at that objectively, I say this person has a more immediate advantage than I do myself. So this is why I find atheists to be more physically healthy. So either with exercising or eating healthy. A lot of Christians and a lot of ministers I know are obese. That's one thing I find very appealing. Can I get your opinion on that?
I think it goes a couple of ways on that too. And I don't think it's necessarily that I can appreciate the day more than you. I think that if all I have is this much time, I'm going to try and maximize that time. So somebody once said, like a vampire never gets anything done because vampires live forever, so they can always put it off till tomorrow. And that's kind of the situation that you find yourself in, right?
Oh my God, I'm also passed out right now. Literally, my it's funny. Just a really quick note. I just did someone, and actually it's Robert. So I interviewed him again in that episode, and he said that his mom made him get rid of Castlevania because the guy is throwing holy water and it's killing the vampires. And so I guess she thought it was sacrilegious. And I was like, Robert, didn't your mom realize that's badass, man? If holy water is killing vampires,
right?
And he's all trying to shut. And I'm like, Darrington knows at this point, if I make a joke, all right, you got to at least give me a sympathy laugh, all right? I'm not a comedian, but at least. So anyway, I was joking with him, but that's a hilarious joke there that you said. But yeah,
well, it's just an analogy, and it applies to everything. So, climate change, right? If there is no, or if the Bible is true, the second coming is coming, right? There's no reason to take care of the earth.
Absolutely.
Right. Well, in fact, go ahead.
No, I'm sorry. I shouldn't interrupt you.
If there is no help coming, there's no cavalry, right? And we're all we got. We better take really good care of our planet. That's all I want to say.
Yeah. So that's not, I wouldn't say that's accurate what you said, but I understand why you would assume that, because we are called to be stewards of the land. The damage we do actually winds up costing people's lives, and as Christians, I am very, very against this right wing, destroy the environment and don't care about it, because ultimately you're affecting people's lives and you're affecting people's livelihoods for the sake of money. And the Bible says the love of money is the root of all kinds of evil. I actually got the scripture tattooed on my arm. And a lot of people say money is the root of all evil. That's not what the Bible says. You really should quote the source material of the things that you're talking about. It says the love of money. Wait, hold on. It says the love of money is the root of all kinds of evil. things like violence and rape have nothing to do with greed. So there's no relationship there. There's that's not what it's saying. It's not saying money causes all the evil in the world. It says the love of money causes probably most of the evil in the world.
Because there is a doctrine in many churches. There's a doctrine in the Bible that gives man dominion over the earth, not stewardship, right? We are not to be earth's husband. This is not husbandry. This is domination. Nature must submit because God has given man dominion over it. That's a very different take, and that's one of the reasons why a lot of particularly like Protestant Calvinist faiths are so okay with just going out and collecting all of the resources, cutting down all of the trees, pulling all of the oil out of the ground, fishing all of the fish out of the seas, because that's God's gift to them. So I'm not saying that all churches put the doctrine of dominion ahead of this sort of interpretation that says that we're stewards and the husbands of the earth.
Mm-hmm.
But I think you can interpret, and people have interpreted the Bible so that it is very much like just consume everything because none of it matters.
Well, so the rest of that verse says, having food and clothes, let us be content. It's part of a whole scripture series that says, we brought nothing to the world and we can take nothing out of it. And then it says, love of money is the root of all kinds of evil. Right. And having food and clothes, let us be content, because the pursuit of worldly wealth is the cause of all sorts of problems. That's like the whole context of that. So that being said, I 1000% agree with the point that atheists, if this is the only earth you have, you're going to value it way more than Christians. I'm just saying the idea to abuse the earth, I don't find it in my interpretation, but I agree with that point 1000%.
One thing that I think religious folks have that atheists probably don't have as much of is like a feeling of purpose. Mm-hmm. That sense of being for something bigger than you. Mm-hmm. And while there's plenty of ways of obtaining that secularly, mm-hmm. like you could join an organization or be part of a mission that's bigger than yourself, there's just nothing quite like being on the side of God. Mm-hmm. And that's such a powerful motivator. I can understand mm-hmm. why it is really dominated.
And let me ask you a question, because I had asked this question inside of a group. One mm-hmm. person said art, the commission of certain kind of artworks, is something they appreciated. Another person said monogamy. That one wouldn't even have registered in my mind. Yeah. But I had made a point that if I'm standing from your perspective, the community is something that I would desire. And someone got they were mad at me, and I'm like, look, I'm not saying this is right or wrong. I'm just saying, look, if I'm sitting from your perspective, I'm trying to empathize, And so whenever I was a non-believer, I really loved the idea of like a secular church where you'd come together, you'd sing some maybe Michael Jackson songs. Someone comes up and gives more of like a motivational speech, and I'm not sure if they collect tithes, but maybe they'd only give like 5% or 2%. They're not. A lot of churches are money hungry, so I kind of doubt that would be like a main motivation. But maybe they'd collect some money just for to pay the person for coming up. I'm sure he wouldn't do it full time. It's probably something they're doing on the weekend. But I think, let me ask you a question. Would you ever attend a secular church? Yeah, like have like all the realms of like community and spirituality, but just without the God.
Like a universalist church?
I wouldn't call it universalist. No.
I say, like, when you say secular church, it just sounds like an oxymoron, like military intelligence. It I definitely could see congregating with other seculars for a secular purpose. So for instance, like let's all get together every Saturday or Sunday and meet at the community center and do community work,
Mhm.
Or organize for some, higher purpose. And that's what I mean is like these things exist. There are secular nonprofits and secular organizations.
Mhm.
The difference really is ritual, and I think that's kind of what we'd be missing.
Mhm.
Um,
The structure.
ritual is super powerful,
Mhm.
psychically for people, right? It's a tremendous bonding tool. So like in secular organizations, you don't get together and sing hymns. We don't sing, pop
Lord of the world.
songs together, right? Right. Well, yeah, we did that once in grade school, right, in the 90s, and that was terrible. But because you have to have some degree of um, turning off your ego, right? When you're in those environments, you're concerned about the mission, but also you're concerned about yourself and how you're
Mhm.
seen, how you're presented.
Mhm.
Religion, through its ritual and through its song and its prayer and all this other stuff, allows you to kind of get out of your ego and be part of the superstructure of
Hmm.
the congregation.
Okay. Okay. I could see that. Did you see the episode we did? I think you did say you saw it. The guy with the moose.
Hmm.
So we've had a lot of really long talks, sometimes 2 or 3 hours, and I said, hey, you know what? I don't want you to take this as offensive, but I'm like, I don't see you as what I would call like an intellectual atheist, like a Hitchens type, or someone who's well researched on it. I said, you're like the kind of atheist who I'd like want to grab a beer with and have a six pack. I said, I want to do like a six pack, so I told him, let's do a series where we just each have like 3 beers and we just sit down and talk about this kind of stuff the way we would over, a pizza or something. And he says, that's not at all offensive to me. He says, that's the truth. I'm not like this deep intellectual person. Knowing his background, his belief in God comes from some horrific abuse that he suffered. I mean, some of the stuff he told me on a more personal level, it's heartbreaking. And but that being said, um, in order to reject religion and in order to try to justify everything coming into existence out of nothing, you got to dig deep, pretty deep into science and quantum, mechanics and philosophy and things like that. So I have found this is not always the case, because I'm giving Leo as an example, and there's unintelligent people from both fields. But I have found, generally speaking, a lot of Christians who I know, they don't understand the basic arguing structuring to making to arguments. They commit so many logical fallacies, even talking to me, that it's embarrassing. And so I can't emphasize this enough. Not every atheist is intelligent.
Sure.
People have various reasons why they're an atheist, but I have found them to be. Yeah. Well, this is obviously present company excluded.
No, I'm saying you have a really good example of a non-intelligent atheist right here. Salt of the earth, my friend.
That would be one of the things that I appreciate, the pursuit to try to find truth the way that they do. One of the biggest problems with Christianity or any religion is, if you believe you have the truth already, there's no point in going out and seeking it.
Mhm.
So I appreciate the inquiry, to actively be trying to, and that's what science does. You know what I mean? I don't know why Christians, I really don't, I genuinely don't understand that. When you start to talk about things like birth control and climate change, and then Christians just abruptly just throw science out the door. You know what I mean? It's like seriously, are we really going to have a discussion, a debate about whether or not the Earth is 6,000 years old? Like, that is so annoying to me. You know what I mean? That is so utterly annoying that that's even something that people want to discuss. It's like why should we have to debate flat Earth to any flat Earther? You know what I mean? We shouldn't have to debate that topic. So
Should
these
be
things like
passes.
climate change, evolution, even if you didn't have any fossil records, DNA alone would prove evolution. You know what I mean? So I don't understand. A lot of Christians want to bury their head in the sands, and I see atheists more willing to take on the truth and confront it head on. Not all the time.
Or the absence thereof, which I think is a lot of times where we get lost in this, is we don't always have to have the answers. I don't need to know what caused the beginning of the universe to not believe in God. I can just say, well, that's a question. Really important that we answer it. Let's try and figure that out.
Mhm.
But we don't know.
Mhm.
You know, that's I don't think it has anything to do with intelligence. And I don't think it has anything to do with really even somebody's desire for truth. I think really what it comes down to is there's two extremes. There's like one extreme that believes their faith. They want to put all like the Ken Hams of the world, right?
Mhm.
It is, the Bible is true because it says it's true, and I'm going to build an Ark museum to describe it to everybody. And then there's the other side, which are the Richard Dawkins of the world, who are saying, the Bible is false, and God doesn't exist, and I'm going to build a museum for that or whatever.
Mhm.
And then there's most of the people in the middle who just live their lives, and they live on one end of the spectrum because they get something out of it that they wouldn't get on the other end of the spectrum, but they don't even really think about it.
But Darrington, the point I make is whenever I rejected Christianity, I had to intellectually go through and dismantle all of the points that I found to be illogical. And in order to do that, I had to challenge my parents. It's as simple as that. Ironically enough, them getting angry at me, asking questions, just wanting to know the answer to, and for them, it was like, you're being rebellious. Like, they'd get angry, they'd yell at me. And I'm like, I'm just trying to understand this junk. You know what I mean? Like, it just doesn't compute in my mind. I cannot make sense of this. It's not that I don't want to. My mom is basically telling me that if I convert to Islam, she's not going to have a relationship with me. Like, I'm genuinely trying to figure this out. And so I went along with it. In fact, if anyone is an atheist and walks away from the faith, I got to say, you have much bigger gonads than I did growing up, because I was an atheist and I would still go out and preach to make my parents happy. I was so much of a coward that I couldn't just confront it, and that's my own path that I went down. And did you ever read The Alchemist?
I don't believe so.
So the guy, I don't give any spoilers, but the guy winds up going around this journey around the world to find something, but he finds in the end that it was underneath him the whole time. And I feel like that was like my journey. I left America, I left my hometown, traveled the world, did everything, and then came back and like, wow, this was here the whole time. And but I couldn't have just accepted it at the time. That's the reality, is I couldn't have accepted it at the time. But the point being in that, Darrington, is that I'm not saying you're like an atheist is smarter. I'm saying you have to challenge the status quo. And that means you have to go against traditional way of thinking. So, if you're going to do that, it means that you're not just going to go along with the flow, is what I'm saying.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Right.
You have to challenge it. And for that, I have found, generally been probably 80-90% of the time, that the people I interact with are more intelligent than the average Christians I meet. Because a lot of Christians are just like, okay, all I need is the Bible. It's going to tell me about science, it's going to tell me about physics, it's going to tell me about biology, about everything, evolution, and this is the only thing I need. And if that's what you do, it's going to close you off to a lot of other ideas, even in other religions. I mean, I've studied a lot of other religions. I found a lot of stuff in there that's useful for me as a Christian. Let's say that.
And I just want to say, like, we take it seriously. And I think that that's the distinction is in a lot of ways.
Mm-hmm.
You know, a lot of atheists have made it to the point where they're an atheist by trying to take the question seriously,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
and
Mm-hmm.
being respectful about it.
Mm-hmm.
Anyway, so
not always respectful. That's definitely not true. They're very disrespectful sometimes. But
okay, so it depends on what your cultural interpretation of respectful is, right? Because there are people that I know that not being direct and informal to their face is a insult to them,
mm-hmm.
right? So I would take insult if you didn't tell me, let's say I had a booger on my face and you didn't tell me that there was a booger
mm-hmm.
on my face,
mm-hmm.
right? But there might be somebody else who would take insult to the fact that you pointed it out. So it's kind of like what I can only really be respectful to somebody based off of either what you tell me is respectful to you, which I don't know right off the bat, or I assume that we have some sort of comparable notes of what we think is respectful.
So if Christians sorry, let me interject. Christians are equally as guilty of this as atheists. Let's just be honest. Christians pretend that they're more moral than they are. They pretend that they're more intelligent than they are, and they want to say, if you don't agree with this, then you're just going to go to hell and you're going to burn forever, and that's just the way it is. So I know Christians talk down to people, and the last guy who I met, we just finished up a podcast, but he was the fifth guy who I met from the anti-theist group, right? He's the last guy who I needed to interview. He's from the UK. He said, I feel bad what those people did to you, but you got to understand that these people are lumping you in with all the other people who come out there and are rude and disrespectful themselves and just want to throw scriptures and be judgmental. And that's not my brand of Christianity, you know? Like, I'm not a judgmental person, you know? In fact, I hate judgmental people. But after I fly over your head, Tarrington? Okay. No, but seriously, I don't know. What do you have to say to that? Because I ruined the moment with my joke.
No, I think we're on the same page about this. I think we're saying basically the same thing, is that it is important to be respectful. It's also important to be honest, mm-hmm. and it's hard. Both of those two things are very hard things. They're very hard to do, and we all slip, right?
Absolutely, positively.
So that's the forgiveness piece, which I actually didn't put on my list, but I think, we already discussed community, which was and beauty, which are the next things on my list. But so really, like how powerful is it to have this, like, overwhelming forgiveness, like mm-hmm. source of forgiveness in your life? Mm-hmm. So I've done a ton of terrible things that I regret, and absolutely. I beat myself up for them all the time, mm-hmm. and I know I have to forgive myself. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. But to have a framework in which you can have an authority forgive you on behalf of yourself is pretty awesome. Something that atheists just do not have. Mm-hmm. If we need forgiveness, we better hope that we're the forgiving type.
So that's first of all, that's a very good point. I personally, I've told you a bit about my mom. Mm-hmm. There was some more abuse that I don't want to get on in like in a podcast type setting, but let's just say I had a lot of hatred towards my dad because as ministers, they were really caught up in helping out other people's children. And the depression I suffered was horrific growing up as a teenager. I mean, I would drape out my entire, like literally no light could penetrate my room because I would tape out all the windows. You couldn't even see your hand in front of your face. And I would cry and cry and cry for hours. And I remember when I would go to church, I remember my face just being totally red and having to like put a bunch of cold water on my face and then go and look perfect for everyone, man. It actually caused a whole other, I actually developed a split personality as a result of this, Darrington. split personality that like literally became like just an entirely different person inside of me. One of which I was actually able to have an entire conversation with. And I know that sounds crazy, but it was a very Fight Club type scenario where we had like a showdown, like a finale where one of us had to survive and the other one had to die. And that's a totally psychological phenomenon. It's in the movie Split. If you watch the movie, so it's not like at all crazy, but that side of me still wants to creep in a lot of times, and it's something I have to keep in check a lot of times. But that being said, the amount of hatred I had for my father, you can't even. It's incalculable. You can't put it into words. It was like I would literally be overseas drinking and drinking and drinking, so I could build up the kind of courage to call up my dad and tell him how much I hated him, you know? And so for me, I felt the only way I could ever punish my dad the way that I felt, or hurt him the way that he hurt me, was that if I never talked to him again as an adult and let him know that you weren't there for me whenever I was a kid, and I'm not going to be there for you now that I'm an adult. And I would literally, when I was in Greece, I think I might have told you about this. After I got divorced, I went to Greece for a while. But it was a daily basis. I just wanted to message him and tell him how much I hated him. And amazing, after I found Jesus Christ and after finding that forgiveness and being able to forgive myself for all the junk I've done, I was able to forgive him and my mother. And I was able to go down to and write a goodbye note and apologize for the stuff I did and forgive her. And I put it into her grave. And my dad is my best friend in the universe right now, man. I would have never imagined in a million years I would love my dad the way that I've come to accept him as it flaws and all, you know. Being a father now, I have a ton of flaws that I'm still working through on a daily basis, that I strive to be better for my daughter. If not for me, like, my life is my life. Like, I'm trying to be better for my daughter, you know. So so yeah, good point. If you're an atheist, you don't have to accept the dogmatism that you have to in Christianity. So you don't have to engage in the kind of cognitive dissonance that I have to as a Christian. You know, there's certain things that, as I said, if we were to have a conversation about hell or about some other topics, about isolationism or other religions, and I'm going to defend everything about Christianity, I'm going to have to engage in some serious cognitive dissonance. And I'm going to have to flat out either lie to you or just be totally disingenuous. And that's not what I try to do. You know what I mean? I try to be as honest with you as possible because I respect you as a person. I respect the time that you've taken to participate. And so I don't want to present sides of myself that are not true. And I don't want to present sides of my religion that aren't accurate. So I would say there's 90%, I would say I understand, but then there's just like this 10 or 20% that like, I really cannot make sense of this. Like, I would have to bang my head against a concrete wall to try to make sense of this. So if you don't have to me, that would be liberating, what I'm saying. If I didn't, I remember when I finally said, I don't have to follow all these rules because Christianity can make you feel very, very inadequate, and it can make you feel very sinful. And that could I feel those feelings on a daily basis, honestly. If you take that off of you and you're like, oh, I'm liberated, man. I don't have to follow these rules. I can create what I think is best for me and so on. And I don't have to be dogmatic because I can say this is just for me, you know? I can say I can't project that morality onto another person. A lot of times, you know, like with the gay person, for example, you know, I mean, I know a lot of people who are gay, you know. To me, the last thing in the world I'd ever want to tell someone is that you're going to go to hell if you're the way that you're born, you know. That's not something I want to do. That's not something I feel good about myself about doing, you know what I mean? Or transsexual, you know. As the father of of a daughter. I have some issues with them maybe wanting to compete with my daughter or entering into a locker room. But on the other hand, I don't want to attack them. You know what I mean? I believe they should have rights, and they should be left alone by people for the most part. That's something that I hate that I would hate to have to tell, I have friends who are Muslims. I would hate to have to do that. You know what I mean? That's just not something that attacking people. It's not something that I enjoy. You know, I do want to share the gospel of my experience, but it is a matter of what, maybe I only overemphasize the loving part, because that's what makes me more comfortable. But that dogmatism, it's not exactly a good feeling all the time, you know?
Religion is structured in a way that it can be interpreted broadly. And people who want to bring like words like homosexual into the Bible are bringing it to the Bible. They're not taking it away from the Bible, right? So like, you know, the structures of punishment, I have huge problems with structures of eternal punishment. The concept of hell is probably the prime example of the evil God like situation. Like and people can explain that away too, but essentially it's punishment. It's a punishment for being how you are, right? And in a lot of cases, especially for sexual and gender issues, it's completely like, if that was part of God's plan was sending those folks to hell.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. So expletive, insert expletive here. But anyway, I do just want to say that I think we should just get rid of gender separation in bathrooms and locker rooms and sports in general. I think, you know, if we got rid of our taboos about gender proximity, we wouldn't have this problem. Right? Everyone would just be okay with genders being mixed in circumstances. And then the idea of a transgender it becomes part of that fluid process.
Well, I really don't want to go into the rabbit hole, but I will say this: in South Korea, as you're entering into bathrooms, they have like, I wouldn't call it a unisex, but they have individual people stalls at the beginning, because we're never, if you think that a man should enter into a bathroom with my daughter, then we're never going to agree on that point. Sure. But that doesn't mean I don't think that they should have to go around people that they would be uncomfortable themselves, you know? I wouldn't be comfortable with it, but in South Korea, there's an option where you have these unisex stalls in the entrance. They're mostly for handicap, but France, even if we just did that, say, let's make them all unisex.
Make them all unisex and
individual stalls.
Right.
Individual stalls is what
exactly.
I'm saying. Yeah, I don't want to. I'd actually love to go down that rabbit.
That's another conversation.
If you want,
yeah.
Because I am actually someone who suffered from body dysmorphia and BID growing up as a kid, and I know that's a very real and very uncomfortable thing to have to you. So I can say, objectively speaking, I don't exactly agree that people should be making those kind of transitions on a personal level. But on the other side, it's like, dude, this is a real thing. This is a real psychological thing. We need to be sensitive to these issues. You know, we need to take care of these people. We need to make sure that their rights are being protected, that they're not being abused. So I think the kind of stuff I see coming out from Christians, unfortunately, just makes my cringe. I mean, if I told you how many times I was called a faggot or a freak growing up, it would blow your mind. You know what I mean? Because people thought I was gay because of this issue. And I was just ridiculed horribly. So that's just why I naturally empathize with people who are transsexual or homosexual, because I know what it's like to have the rest of society abuse you. You know what I mean? And so it's a horrible feeling, man. I would understand why a lot of them commit suicide and why they suffer depression. And so for that reason, I believe that we need to even if we disagree, we can disagree with love, you know? Because I do disagree with it. But on the other flip side of that, I got to say, This is a delicate issue. We talk to these people in a disrespectful way. It could literally mean the difference between them living and dying. So, like, just take a step back. Let's approach it slowly. Let's try to provide an environment where everybody is treated with respect. And, we're gonna have to make some compromises. It's as simple as that, though. Not everybody can have their way 100% of the time. And I think that's a big problem, maybe just Christianity in general. If you're trying to get your way 100% of the time and there's no compromise, that can cause a very big problem. So
the last one that I had was really just kind of like beauty and the existential experience of having faith, right?
Mm-hmm.
So not necessarily aesthetics. Like the churches are really good at aesthetics. They build the big cathedrals and everything's designed to give you to spark that sense of beauty inside of you and the sense of glory. But when you have a real religious moment, I think that there's a beauty there that is very difficult to find in the secular world. I can imagine it in very rare instances where I would have a secular version of sort of the feeling of the Holy Spirit or the Spirit of glory inside you. So that's my last one.
And you know what? I've seen some of those Mormon temples, man. Those things, maybe Mormons make the greatest buildings, honestly, now that I think about it. I will say this, whenever I was in Turkey, I had this amazing shot of me in front of the Hagia Sophia, and I had this camera that would allow you to take like a 360 shot. And so to one side, there's the Hagia Sophia, and then to the other side, there's the Blue Mosque, which I believe Liam Neeson totally destroyed in Taken Part 2. He blew up half of Istanbul in that movie, but it was very beautiful before he blew it up. So that was an amazing scene. But yeah, I get that. I get why you'd say that. And just real quick, we don't have to explain these. I just want you to say the top three. If you take a step back and say, now examine this from the other side of the coin, right? So for instance, if I was an atheist, I would say maybe the three things I would value the most is, I think, the community, because I know how strong of a community we can have. And people become like family, they're just like family.
Right.
Actually, a lady in our church just talked to my dad today. They just buried her son today. He committed suicide. And he was like, yeah, it's a very sad story. And the way that my dad was telling that the church came and provided them, food every day, that time, that's something I would envy if I didn't have that. When my mom died, the church brought over, my dad had to tell them to stop bringing food because they're bringing so much food for us. But I think there's that. I think the taking out the guesswork and trying to fit, like having an authority tell, and that can be bad, but at the same time, it's like, okay, now I don't have to go out and try to figure out everything. But if I have someone else just giving me the answers, that in a sense would be more desirable. And finally, it would probably be the belief in an afterlife, because if my daughter did die, and I have the utmost respect for that Robert character, man. He's coming on a monthly basis, but that guy is an incredible human being. I hope he's listening to this. But I would rather believe a lie. Let's just say that. I would rather believe, if that was the reality, I don't see how I could ever function again. So that guy is just light years beyond. And maybe I would be able to deal with it in the moment. I can tell you right now, I can't imagine myself functioning if that were to happen. So,
if I were Christian,
this is getting
what
confusing.
would be?
Getting confusing. If
I were Christian, what would I appreciate? So adaptability. This is going to overlap with your list very well.
Okay.
What I cannot handle about religion in general is dogma, where you have these doctrines, they are immutable, they are handed down from God, and therefore in the light of new evidence we cannot challenge them. So that is the single biggest light that atheism has, I think, is that we're just open, right? We can rewrite our rules at any point. We can cherry pick the best.
Cherry pick.
We can cherry pick the best morals that we want. We can't necessarily cherry pick the facts, but we can adapt to new facts. Responsibility. Go ahead.
No, please. Well, I just wanted to say real quick that it's probably not as much as you would assume, because the religious folks in the New Testament thought the same exact thing, and Jesus came and flipped everything upside down. So I believe something very similar like that is happening now, because well, I don't want to go down too much, but let's just say I don't think it is as immalleable as you might believe that it is. And
well, let me
just talk about that.
Yeah, let me just say that Jesus is welcome to come and personally inform me that I'm wrong. Okay, I'll put that out there.
Okay.
If Jesus comes and personally informs me that I'm wrong, I would be happy to change my mind, and I would do it in a heartbeat.
Touché.
Responsibility. So, like, I think that because we don't believe that there is a plan, and we don't believe that there's anything looking out for us or watching over us, we have to take responsibility for ourselves and for others. So like, I really like, I was reading the other day, someone saying like, and I think he was preaching to a religious organization, and he said, when you come across somebody who's injured or who needs help, be as the atheist. Don't just pray to God to help them. Take it upon your own rights and be God's work in this world, as opposed to just praying for it. And that's kind of the idea, right? Is like we're just gonna roll up our sleeves and do his job for him.
That's I just do have to interject because that's very, very inaccurate. Because if you take a look at Matthew 25, basically a bunch of Christians get up in front of Jesus and he's like, yeah, you guys are going to hell. And they're like, why? And they're like, he's like, well, when I was hungry, you didn't feed me. Whenever I was in jail, you didn't visit me. So yeah, I don't think I'm game to listen to any criticism you have, but that one is not at all accurate.
So it's not, this is not a criticism against religion. This is saying that if I were a Christian, and I would be looking at atheism and I say atheism is forced to act like this. They have no other choice, right? So there are plenty of Christians here who can say that, preach Jesus's words and then lock up children at the border, right? And not want to help these refugees from South America, that are coming to us for help, right? So they're pushing them away, completely against Jesus's teaching.
Absolutely.
Right.
Absolutely.
Whereas I think while the atheists can kind of do some mental gymnastics to hate the other, I think it makes it really, really hard to not be able to say, well, somebody's got to do something.
This is a total rabbit hunting. But who do you think would be more likely to be, because this is a genuine question. This is literally a genuine, this is not a gotcha question. Who do you think would be more likely to be racist, a believer or an atheist?
I think honestly, it's much easier. It doesn't matter whether you're Christian, whatever your religion is. If you are religious, it is much easier to be prejudiced because you have a natural specifically racism, right? But also other prejudices, right? It's a easy way to separate the in-group from the out-group, right? And unfortunately, it seeps into a lot of situations. It's almost harder if you're being completely secular to not be held accountable for being racist. And I'm not saying that there aren't racists in the secular community. I know that there are, but it's so much easier to call somebody out for it because they don't have the armor of God to hide behind.
And at least I could just tell you from a Christian perspective, that makes absolutely zero sense, because from the Bible it says we're all, in fact, Paul says that there's no longer male or female, or Jew or Gentile, Scythian or Greek. And so we're all like children of God. So, I mean, I understand there's racist Christians. I know a lot of them. Trust me, I know a lot of them. Let's just say there's probably more racist Christians, but that doesn't mean that they're acting consistently within the Bible. Let's just say there's kind of a compromise. The atheists I've met have been humanitarians. So if you're a humanitarian, that's not something you're likely to engage in. You're likely to want to engage into volunteer work and understanding, empathy. The level of respect I'm gaining for you is very high. You, as I said, if I were to kill you on the intellectual battlefield, I would allow you to commit harakiri and disembowel yourself.
Well, it would be my honor to do so if you were to defeat me.
Well, I was going to say, if you respect a person, you allow them to do that. But if not, you before they could do this. So, anyway, that, as you know, it's not my intent. It's not. I'm glad we were able to clear some air on some stuff. And in the future, just to get this out there, you had mentioned like after we had that little blip, you're like, oh, maybe I shouldn't come on. I'm like, Darrington, in the long term of things, man, I'm actually 10 times more grateful that we have that experience to where we can learn from it. You know, we can take a step back. I can't even tell you. Probably, I was more upset with myself the way that I responded. I mean, I was upset with you that you pushed me to the point that I would respond that way. You know, and I take a step back and I'm like, I'm not acting consistently with the values that I'm claiming here. You know. And so I would get a little. This is such a. I'm just 3 o'clock in the morning here. This is such an important issue to me, and no one. I certainly am not someone who operates with consistency in everything I preach. You know, I'll be the first to admit that. So when I act in ways that are counterintuitive to what I'm proclaiming, it grieves me. You know. It's not what I want to be, and but I look forward to many, many more talks with you, brother. I think we're on the same side here. So that being said, we want to thank you for joining us today at RAG Podcast, and we look forward to seeing you back again. And y'all have a good night. Bye.